You're listening to the 5-Minute Friday podcast episode of The Aligned Self. This is your host, Daniel Danovi. Okay, 5-Minute Friday, a short and concise podcast episode of The Aligned Self designed to leave you with a question, an idea, a strategy, a tip, a hack, in order to give you greater access to your conscious awareness, evolving your conscious awareness, or give you greater mastery over your mind. Hello, friend, and welcome into this 5-Minute Friday. Today I want to talk about the distinction, or make something distinct in your experience of life, and that is acknowledgement. You see, as a human being, one of the things that we seek is validation. Now, ideally, we create some kind of strategy, some kind of criteria by which we can validate ourselves, an internal checklist by which if we fulfill certain amount of criteria, certain evidence, then we can know ourselves to be validated for some, you name it, some skills, some likability, lovability, effectiveness. We want to know that our existence is worthwhile. I mean, ideally, we're here on the planet. We came into this incarnation in order to make a difference, in our life, and hopefully a difference for the other people in our life. And frankly, we love it when other people notice our presence, notice what we're doing, notice what we're up to. Now, some people like to fly underneath the radar, to be sure. But I think that everyone has something that they want to be acknowledged for, something they want to be known for, something that they feel is a virtue of theirs, and they want other people to also see it as a virtue. And so, one of the greatest gifts we can give people in our lives, our loved ones, our spouses, our extended family, our employees, or our teammates, and that is to acknowledge them for something that they would like to be acknowledged for. And it may not be readily evident. You know, the thing that they want to be acknowledged for, the thing that they value, the thing that they want to be known for or pointed out. And sometimes it's hidden. People don't like to brag necessarily. They're actually waiting for somebody else to notice. And yes, that is just a little passive-aggressive in that stance. It's like we want to be noticed for something, we want to be acknowledged for this, but we're not going to point it out to you, because if we point it out to you, then it doesn't mean as much. Yet, if you don't acknowledge it, if you don't thank me for it, if you don't, make me aware that you know, then I'm going to silently be upset with you. There's going to be some kind of conversation that, oh, poor me, no one really gets the impact that I make for them or for everybody else around here. Unfortunately, most people are not very good at acknowledging other people for their virtues. I learned this early on in the workforce. I would go into work and I'd do my thing and actually go over and above the standard, over and above what was expected, and very little acknowledgement did I get. And if you're an average person, then you would find that lack of acknowledgement demotivating. You would actually be doing less and less because, in your mind, what's the point? No one ever notices. But again, this is because we're seeking outside validation. One of the things that I realized early on, and it was so powerful for me to get this, and I feel fortunate in order to have this observation, is that if I wanted to be acknowledged, then I needed to acknowledge myself. Because frankly, for myself, I found it inexcusable for me to lower my performance, to do less than I expected of myself, just because somebody else wasn't watching. I wasn't necessarily brought up that way, and I have to thank my dad for that, because to a fault, he never expected to be acknowledged for anything. He felt that the job that he did would be a testament to the person that did it. So if he did an excellent job, just the fact that that job was well done was a testament to his ability. But to acknowledge yourself and to acknowledge others is so powerful. And I'm going to give you two modes or two methods to do this. First is for yourself. Identify in a short list, a sheet of paper, 5 to 10 things that you want to be or would like to be acknowledged for. Skills, attributes, characteristics that you're proud of yourself for. It could be your positive outlook. It could be your work ethic. It could be the fact that you go to bed at the same time every night. You have self-discipline. Then I want you to take one of those attributes, or actually take them one at a time, and acknowledge yourself for them, saying something like this: Daniel, or your name, you should be proud of yourself for XYZ. And what's powerful about this is that when you use the third person talking to yourself, use your name, it's more powerful than you say I. Because for some reason or another, we value that third party vindication. And I can't really go into it now because it's more extensive, but each and every person on the planet has a strategy in their mind by which they are convinced. So for most people, a third-party endorsement is more convincing as part of your convincer strategy than if you come up with it yourself. So if I use a complete statement with myself, I would say something like, Daniel, you should be proud of your ability to reframe virtually every situation into the positive. Just like, and then you give an example. And so the formula is, you should be proud of yourself because, and then you have the story or the example or the evidence for that validation. We tie the because in it, it's even more powerful. And that also works with gratitude. I'm so thankful for because, and then you have the story behind it. There's an evidence procedure. It rounds out the feeling. It validates the feeling more appropriately. The other side of the coin of acknowledgement is to acknowledge those people in your life that are meaningful to you. And again, I said, your spouse, your loved ones, your friends, your family, your teammates, colleagues, even your boss, or your employees, or your customers. And for this, I'll use my wife as an example. Now, it's important to make this distinction about this acknowledgement, is that it's not necessarily being grateful or expressing thankfulness, because, my wife is an amazing cook. But if I was to thank her for the meal, thank her for cooking, that's okay, but it's not necessarily her job, because on occasion I do cook also, and we kind of trade off. But by and large, she does the cooking, and she loves it, and it's evident. Although there are times when she doesn't feel like cooking, and she'll say so. But if I were to say, honey, you're an amazing cook, okay, so what? It's not enough there to really acknowledge her, because she kind of knows she's a good cook. But if I can attach a why or a because to it, it is even more impactful. I love how much love that you put in your cooking, how much thought and care that you take in creating the menu, picking the ingredients. And I have to tell you, just as an aside, we eat very little out of a box. We don't open very many cans. Just about everything's fresh and made from scratch. My wife has a background in health education, and she puts all that knowledge, all that research into each and every meal. Now me, I basically go by her guidelines, but honey, I can tell, and I'm very aware of the amount of love and attention you put into cooking. And it's a creative art for you. I'm amazed at some of the ways you bring ingredients together and what comes out. It's totally delicious, totally amazing. And no two recipes, no two meals is exactly the same because, you're creative. You change things up all the time. But it is always delicious, always good. And so each time I sit down to a meal with you, I feel the love. I feel how much you care. Do you get how much more powerful that is than just saying, thanks for cooking the dinner, or you're a great cook? And this can go across the board with just about anyone. And it's not a compliment. It's not picking something that anyone could see. It's noticing something distinct and different about them, about their thinking, about what they did or what it took for them to do something. See, it's a trained eye that can pick this up, and I'm not that great at it all the time. But once it's in your awareness, you become more and more present to it, and I'm starting to make it a practice again because, like anything, it's easy to get lazy on something. And so one of the things that I'm doing for 2023 is putting acknowledgement back into my program. But if I'm truly honest, the inspiration for this particular topic in this today was a strategic coaching call that I had with a young woman named Gina in Germany. And I'd like to take a moment just to acknowledge her right now. I was very impressed with the fact she's 22. And she invested in herself, invested in a strategic coaching call about guiding her life, about looking at what's possible for her. And I feel privileged to be the person that she tapped on the shoulder to have this conversation with. But in our conversation, I was thoroughly impressed with her thinking, the depth and breadth of thoughts that she thinks, and how she's looking forward and what she wants to create in her life and manifest. And when I reflect back on how I was when I was 22, she is way ahead of me, way ahead of me. And I think that her future is really bright, really going to be expansive, not because she's all that special necessarily, even though she is. It is because she is at the helm. She's taking responsibility for her life. She's creating her life. She's being responsible, response-abled. And that, my friends, is going to make a huge difference. But what I didn't expect this. She began telling me how much the podcast, how much the topics and the communication that I've put out has meant to her. And she proceeded to tell me that she has to drive a ways to get to her job. She lives in a small mountain town in the Black Forest. In order for her to get to her job on time, she needs to get up every day at 4 a.m. Because, frankly, she has to drive a while to get to her job. And many times getting up in the morning, she doesn't really feel like it. She wonders, is it all worth it? Because it's just a job. It doesn't really fulfill her. We talked about creating something that's fulfilling for her. But right now, this job doesn't, fill the bill all the way. And she's not that motivated to get out the door. But then she thinks that she can listen to a podcast episode on the way. And then she proceeded to tell me for the next 15 minutes how the podcast topics, how the conversations, how I have impacted her life. And I was tearing up. I was crying. And me just thinking about it now, it's very emotional. And I don't think I've ever quite been acknowledged that way. And it was quite unexpected. I also think it was very relevant to me because just the day before, just yesterday, I was in this thinking that maybe I'm not in touch with reality. Because, after having that spiritual awakening, that Kundalini awakening, a lot of times everyday life doesn't feel real to me. But in that conversation with Gina, that 15 minutes, I didn't say a word. I just took it in. I received it. And I'm thankful to her, and I'm thankful to the universe for bringing us together. It was what I needed, and it impacted me in a way that I don't even know yet. But if I think about it, I know it validated me as a teacher, it validated my mission, it validated me doing all these 200 and some, and who knows how many podcast episodes. Sometimes, sitting in my office, it feels like it's just me talking into a microphone. And I can go weeks sometimes before I get any feedback whatsoever. And so occasionally, sometimes I wonder if anybody's listening. I know you're listening, but it was interesting. Gina said, and she said, if you ever wonder if anyone's listening, she pointed to herself and said, I'll be listening. And that's not to say that many of you have not reached out and told me that you're listening, that you've listened to every episode. But my real point in saying all that is that you never know when the acknowledgement that you express will make all the difference. You never know what another person's going through in that moment. Your words of encouragement, your words of acknowledgement could be the tonic, the salve to heal the wound. And so if you feel spurred on just a little bit, take the leap and express your acknowledgement. Because when you consider the depth and breadth of the power and impact that you can make with just a few words, a few thoughtful words, it's simply magical. So look around your life, look around the people that are closest to you, and find something to acknowledge about them. And start making it a practice to acknowledge yourself, my friend. And start looking around your community of friends, your network, your acquaintances, even people on social media. There are certain people that you're attracted to. I just acknowledged somebody in my Facebook feed because she is always showing up as raw and real and not afraid to be vulnerable and express what she's going through. And then kind of lay out her thinking about it too. It's such a real look compared or contrasted to all the other souffleurist stuff out there on the interwebs. She's just real. And I always walk away loving her a little bit more. And I've never met her. I don't even know her. But I'm just attracted to her thinking. And I said so on her wall. Which brings to mind one more thought, and I'm way over the 5-Minute Friday here. But that's the impact on you in acknowledging. You see, you're also impacted. One of the things that I love about being a coach in these strategic coaching sessions and even long-term coaching agreements is that I'm changed and transformed also in these conversations because I get to look into your life. We get to talk about things, about your fears and your hopes and your dreams, and I'm a good listener. And I also present something that a lot of people never get, is that I have no judgment. Whatever you want to do with your life, whatever you're done, it's like, I accept you. I accept your dreams. I'll find a way to support your dreams in whichever way is possible. I'm there for you. But I have to admit, I naively thought on the front end of this whole gig, this coaching gig, that I could be the catalyst for transformation in your life, the catalyst for change. If you know anything about chemistry, then you know a catalyst is a substance you add to a mixture that causes a transformation. But the catalyst is not changed. It's left unchanged. Well, that's not the way it works in relationships at all, especially not coaching relationships, because I'm transformed, I'm changed. I attract the clients that are most aligned with me, that are aligned with my thinking, that I can actually assist. Those that aren't interested in it aren't even interested in coaching with me. But when I thought of myself as a catalyst, I was attracting all kinds of people that were not a good fit for me. But today, it is an exchange of energy. Well, that's it for this conversation. I want you to find someone to acknowledge, even if it's yourself today. Acknowledge 5 people this week. It's not that hard. I want you to start looking. I want you to start being in action on this. So until next time, this is your friend and host, Daniel Denovi, urging you to follow your bliss, live your life from inner signals, be inner directed as you engage in the epic adventure